Another one of President-elect Donald Trump's cabinet picks will be on the hot seat later today. Retired Marine Major General John Kelly, tapped to lead the Department of Homeland Security, will appear for his confirmation hearing this afternoon. He's expected to be easily confirmed, but will likely be pressed about Mr. Trump's plan to build a border wall and other steps to boost security. Last night, Trump team senior advisor Kellyanne Conway saying the plan to build the wall is still on track, even amid questions over funding. Watch.
The president-elect made clear last week, Sean, that maybe Congress will pay for it first to speed up the process. But the full intent and plan is to then have Mexico reimburse us for it. This is the way the appropriations process goes. Anybody who says anything differently is lying and is doing so for political reasons.
Mr. Spicer, if Mexico doesn't end up paying for the wall in its entirety, do you think you're going to have some angry supporters?
It's possible, but I think Mr. Trump's been very clear that he's a man of his word and he gets things done. So I think he's going to do it. Mexico's going to pay for it, and everyone will be happy. But look, I think you mentioned at the outset General John Kelly testifying today. This is a guy who ran Southern Command. He understands the drugs, the trafficking that is going on at our southern border, not just coming up from Mexico, but other areas where people are using that southern border to come in other ways. And we need somebody who is solely focused and understands the problem that the country faces in terms of immigration, its economic impact, the human trafficking impact that we're having. And there's no one better than General John Kelly to take on that task.
How's Mexico going to pay for it? Remissions? Or
there's a lot of ways. I mean, you can look at tariffs and user fees and remissions. I mean, there's other ways that can be done, and I think part of this is to work with Congress and figure out a way, frankly, work with the Mexican government to figure out a way to make it happen. But there's also companies, remember, one of the things that the President-elect has talked about is companies that are moving out of this country and then going to a place with cheaper labor and trying to sell back at the expense of American workers those products. And I think there's a way that you can utilize some of those taxes and tariffs to help fund this as well. I'm not going to get in front of the President-elect on this and his team in terms of the policy aspects of it, but I think there's a lot of mechanisms by which you could actually seek that.
So you're doubling down potentially in a tariff war between us and Mexico and other countries?
No, I'm not doubling down, because one of the things that I think he's been very clear on is that if you choose to stay in this country, that tariff doesn't exist. That tax doesn't exist. If you continue to stay here in America and put American workers first, you're going to be fine. I think what he's concerned about is people using the tax benefit of another country to disadvantage American workers and then sell back to the American consumer.
So it doesn't sound to me like Mexico is paying for the wall. It sounds to me like GM or somebody's paying for the wall.
I was dovetailing into the broader thing, but I think there's a lot of mechanisms that can be used to be the funding mechanism.
Well, one of the things that the President-elect even has talked about is the fact that you would reimburse on a situation, you'd pay for what you need, and then through all those different avenues get reimbursed. And so there was never this sort of upfront cost that we anticipated that there would be anyway paid by Mexico. So I think that's been pretty clear all along.
On October 22nd, for folks in the mainstream media who are trying to say that he's backing away for something, on October 22nd, he made it very clear that this is the way that the appropriations process works, and he would work through that and then seek the reimbursement.
He also talked about the trade deficit.
Right.
And the trade deficit we have, with Mexico particularly, but China as well. So is there a way of reworking that to have a more favorable balance for America?
Well, sure. I mean, when you look at the regulatory and tax impact that a lot of our countries face, a lot of our companies face, which is why they're moving. And if you can establish a more favorable tax and regulatory climate here in the United States, grow the manufacturing base here, that by nature reduces the trade deficit.
Okay.
All right, we got to take a quick break. More Outnumbered in just a moment.